So years ago, it was the George Floyd shit going on, and I went outside when the riots and shit was going on. So was you outside during that time,
Yeah.
and can you tell me a little more about that?
Yeah, so I was definitely outside. So I think after the George Floyd is when I was like, okay, I'm gonna do something. Like I feel like actually doing something. Like
Yeah,
the stuff that I was seeing going on in the community, I really feel like wasn't doing them justice. Just to be transparent, like white people just wasn't in a right place, and I just feel like I needed to move them over because
yeah.
they was just talking like they was just really centering themselves, and I didn't like that.
Hmm.
So that's how I started doing the demonstrations. I wrote like a list of demands that I wanted to see Iowa governors do and Iowa like political leaders do. So I wrote like felon disenfranchisement is when like felons are being mistreated or people with felony convictions are being mistreated, and voter suppression is one of those things. So people with felony convictions cannot vote. So that's like really unfair because people have did their time. So it's
Yeah,
like you need to let people express their First Amendment, exercise whatever the First Amendment.
Yeah.
So that was one of the demands. Decriminalizing marijuana was the another demand, just because like we're disproportionately arrested for that and like
okay.
are fighting cases for that shit, and that shit gets expensive as fuck. Like people do not realize this shit
They do.
over like, and we like one of the last states to not have decriminalized or like legalized that, and that's a problem for real,
Yeah.
for real. Like everybody else around us has did that literally. So that was one of the demands, and I think there was two other demands that I really can't remember. But we ended up getting a executive order signed saying that felons had gotten their voting rights back, pretty much. Right. So that was a really big deal, just because people deserve to be able to exercise their First Amendment for sure.
For sure.
You was doing all that. You was exercising your voice. You was supplying people with shit. You was really there for the community.
Yeah, I saw
for
that.
sure, for sure.
That bad apple around people who's always gonna talk their shit and it's bullshit. So how did you feel about that? Like people that try to come at you.
It was hard. Like it was really, really hard just because like I talk about this a lot with like a couple of my close friends, but like self-preservation is not one of those things that like the Black community praises, and it's because we're in such desperate need of community, if that makes sense. So like when we see somebody like trying to make a change or like they've elevated in a way to where like they can now put the community on, we kind of feel like, well, you don't deserve that, and that's not true. You know what I'm saying? Like I started a GoFundMe and I raised like thousands of dollars, but like little do people know, I was houseless that summer. Like I wasn't working. Like you know what I'm saying? Like my time was literally going to my community. Like no bullshit. We'd be done tearing down and cleaning up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there'd just be different shit like behind the scenes that nobody sees. So like when people was like talking about me on the internet and like arguing with me, like that shit was really hurtful. I'm not gonna lie, but I just had to remind myself, and my community just like really reminded me like of how much I deserve to be in this position and like how great I am doing this work for real. So yeah,
I'll speak on behalf of me and Manny. Main Type of Media supports you, and we ain't for none of that shit. So if you
thank
say
you.
any
We
of that
appreciate
shit,
it.
out of here.
We appreciate you.
We
for
definitely
real.
support. No
I
cap.
appreciate y'all.
That's on camera.
Thank you for real.
And like you mentioned, the felons, like I'm glad you was doing that for the felons, and a lot of motherfuckers went to jail behind that shit too.
Yeah, that shit was not like, and that's the hard part about it. That's why I really don't really participate in demonstrating anymore, or even like try to organize them anymore, because they're really dangerous. Like it's a lot of risk that we don't know about. Like there's a lot of risk that we do know about, but there's a lot of risk we don't know about. And putting somebody in a position to go to jail, or to even get arrested when they've never had a record before,
right?
Even though they are passionate about this making a change, it's just not a position that I want to put somebody in.
Man, my brother got arrested at the riots.
Yeah, like them shits was.
I ain't gonna lie, it was this nigga's fault. First off, this nigga, everybody was marching this nigga in front of every cop. Fuck you, bitch. And then it was like, y'all gotta leave. And he was like, nigga, how you gonna leave? And it was like, I'm gonna catch you. He was like, I'll get the. He said, "Yo, you gonna run?" This nigga said, "I get the." You gonna run? So they got in the car. They drove off. They come back with a paddy wagon 90. This nigga runs up the hill. This nigga just hiding. No, nigga got tackled.
Yeah, it was rough. They was not fucking with us.
No, they wasn't.
They was not fucking with us at all.
Man, I know that shit was dangerous, but it was the first time cause like I grew up. If you don't know, I'm deep into Black history. I'm like I have been since I could read, and I always grew up like, damn, I wouldn't have graduated at 16 like Martin Luther King. I want to be an activist. I didn't. It didn't turn out that way. I barely graduated at 18.
You can still be an activist.
But I can be, yeah. But I always said that shit, and that was like the closest I ever got to that. And I took that shit serious too. Yeah. When I went there. I really did. I took that shit serious. The one time I really felt like I showed pride for my niggas and shit. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And I appreciate y'all for coming out there, because when I say my community like really showed up and showed out, like I really showed up and showed out. Like people was always checking in.
Like I say, I'm not even gonna cap to you. I was not out there.
And it's and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I know people was talking that shit, you know, saying how people need to come outside, but there's nothing wrong as Black people like saying like we don't want to protest. We sitting at home. That shit is dangerous. Like that shit is dangerous.
I didn't want to protest, but I was like, damn, this motherfucker going up. So I'm
for real, this shit,
let this motherfucker, chill. Yeah. It's not that I didn't want to. I do want to protest, but I ain't come out, bro.
It's okay. I swear it is okay.